Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flannel Channel. I'm Philip, and I'm working on the Hot Rod 79 F-150 project again this weekend. And here I'm working on recovering the dash pad of this thing. I used a company called Coverlay. I'm really happy with the results on it. I'll show you step by step how I did that. And I'm actually fitting the original steel dash into this truck, even though everything underneath and behind it is Crown Victoria. So we got to do some trimming and a little bit of custom work on this thing to make it fit. But it's going to be an interesting episode. Hope you stick around. Here we go. Well, what I'm about to do is cut up my original dash, and if that makes you uncomfortable, well, I'm not gonna sit here and apologize because chances are you probably haven't appreciated the rest of the build so far. But hey, a purist or somebody with a weak constitution may need to look away. But I'm about to cut up this dash simply so that we can still use it in this truck because I love these dashes. I just have to do a little bit of trimming in order to keep it. All right, so here we go. I shouldn't have to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway, that I will only be trimming back what I think I absolutely have to on this dash in order to get it to fit properly with the Crown Victoria steering column. And like I was explaining in earlier videos, we had to set the steering column inboard just a little bit because of the firewall spacing and things like that. So the column actually doesn't sit in the exact same spot that the old column used to. We basically had to make an adapter out of that steel there and move everything to the right. Because of that, I'm going to have to trim part of where the old ignition switch would have come through the dash and a little bit of the structural part back in there. Now these two bolts go to those two holes right there. And so that's still going to give us some strength right there. I'm going to be painting this area brown. I'd like to still be able to keep the ashtray if possible. I don't know if it's going to be a functional ashtray. It might just be the false front on there, but we'll see. But for now, I definitely have to cut a little bit of the stock dash right in this area here. So that's a bummer, but it's part of a swap, and it's part of what is important to us in keeping the original dash as original as we can and complete as we can. So yeah, here goes nothing. Is that enough trimming? I have no idea, but there's only one way to find out. Try and test fit, go back, trim some more if you have to. Just keep working your way so you accomplish what you're after. Because, like I've said other times, a project like this really is a matter of what are you willing to give up in order to get what you're after. You have to sacrifice some things for the sake of others. That's hot rodding. Alright, cool. We're definitely closer. And we gained a lot. So let me show you here. Alright, we do still have some interference right in this area here. I bent this tab up with the intention of hopefully being able to use it and somehow tie it in for more strength, but if need be, I'll just cut it all the way off. It's just gonna hang up and be in the way. I don't know. But I think I came over far enough just by following that curve that was in the ignition switch. I liked how that curved instead of a sharp angle. So I think we're good there. I think I just need to go up higher, maybe. But we're definitely close now. I like it. I like it a lot. And here, since it's on my mind, I'll mention this too. Hot rodders, I think, have gotten a bad reputation years and years and years ago, simply for not appreciating what they're cutting up and changing. Because the purists, it's the age-old battle of, hey, you should just leave it alone because it's beautiful just the way it came from the factory. And I appreciate that, I truly do. But there's also something to be said for making something cool and custom, and that's the camp that I live in, is, yeah, it came cool from Henry Ford, but let's make it even cooler and let's personalize it and make it our own. So, you know, everybody falls on different sides of the fence on that issue, but as long as we can all appreciate one another's viewpoints, that's the big thing, instead of harshing on each other, right? Yeah. All right, carry on, we keep cutting. So I've been spending a little bit of time just trying to go through my wire harness and organize what goes where, what belongs where it ought to be. And this is the hole I just drilled in the firewall there for the wiper motor harness and connector to come through, and it plugs right into the wiper motor there. And so I made sure, as best I can anyway, that the rods for the wiper mechanism, the wiper transmission I believe it's called, everything moves and works inside. The wipers will swish. Got the ductwork up in there now for the defroster, and got part of the harness up and set out of the way so that we're getting things off the floor little by little, and tracing some of my wire harness back, what belongs to the fuel pump and what will eventually be tail lights and turn signals and things like that for the rear. So I got my grounds hooked back up on both A-pillars down in the kick panel area. I am keeping the Crown Victoria parking brake, simply because I think that's gonna make doing drifting and burnouts and stuff like that more fun. I may end up just kind of either bolting this release in here somewhere, or I could just zip tie it so that the pedal just always has spring pressure. I haven't really decided, but anyway, now it's time to set the dash back in there again and actually bolt it into the sides, put my trim screws across the top, and got some paint on certain parts of the steering column and things like that last night, and this will give me the opportunity to just start attaching things up underneath and cleaning up a little bit more of the interior. And so yeah, it's time consuming, but it's all necessary. It's all gotta happen. So carry on. There we go. Awesome. Okay, bolts in the dash are tight. The screws are all along the top, and I'm sick of taking this dash in and out to do the trimming and things like that. I'm going to declare it in for good, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'll leave my words. But I think from now on I can work around the dash and continue on making progress. We move on. So I love working on my hot rod, and I love spending time with my family, and sometimes that can happen in the same place and at the same time. For instance, tonight is a school night, and I'm just down in the basement at the laundry room workbench area, and I'm going to work on the dash pad of Curtis Lowe. And so I'm going to learn to do something that I've never tried before, and you can find out right along with me if this is going to work. It should. I've seen it work for other people, but I've never personally done something like this. So let's give it a whirl. The original dash pad of the truck is really, really cracked and beat up, and that's it there, built May 25th, 1979. It's steel. You can see the attaching studs and nuts with the foam underneath. The foam seemed to be in fairly decent shape, except for, you know, where the cracks are at, stuff like that, but just a lot of fade, discoloration, things like that. So I ordered this from Summit Racing. It's made by a company called Coverlay Manufacturing, and they sell a cover just for the dash pad, and they have them in a whole bunch of different colors. So let's open this thing up. I see instructions and some silicone. So yeah, let's find out together. I can tell it has some flexibility to it. It's not so rigid that Don't crack as much. There I see some inspection stuff. It was actually just recently done, January 19th, 2023. So they probably mold it and fulfill it and then ship it immediately, which is pretty cool. Small batch stuff. And there's our warranty information, which is good to know, and our instructions. So I'll read through this and we'll put a plan together of how we're gonna take this on tonight. If you look at my old piece here, there are some areas where the cracking has actually lifted. And so maybe a small thin crack doesn't lift up, but the larger areas will just continue to open up, and the plastic is actually curling up and creating a ridge. And so if we're gonna cover that up, we wanna make this surface as smooth and as flat as we can. So I'll probably end up cutting that back quite a bit to prevent any curling and try and make our new cover lay as flat as possible. Do not use acetone or paint thinner or any petroleum-based solvent. It can cause the new cover to warp over time. That's good to know, because I was actually planning on using acetone, and now that I read that, I know I can't. I know that I shouldn't. Plastic of the new one would have a reaction if I used acetone or brake cleaner or something like that. So, we're learning. At first glance, it looks like this mold is spot on. I mean, just by a loose lay over the top, it looks pretty dang close. And I'm actually impressed with the color too. That looks really close to what I was after with my dash. Allow for normal expansion and contraction of the dash. Don't apply to the center of the surface area, only around their perimeter. Small bead of adhesive on the underside of the dash cover. Okay, so they're saying to apply the glue here. Don't apply the glue here. Apply it on the underside of the cover. Time lapse engaged. So I started cutting around the edge of some of these cracks that had curled up a lot, and I was having pretty good luck just sort of picking away at any pieces that had curled a lot, and I could just kind of peel them back and snap a piece off, because, you know, obviously we're trying to get that to lay really nice. And then I realized, you know what, I can probably just push down on some of these areas and it would crack a little bit more, but then it lays nice after I do that. It's like it takes some of the tension out of the plastic that had been curled up, and it makes it lay flat again. So for right or wrong, I kind of like that a little bit better, even though it's adding more cracks. Some of those cracks are still stuck to the foam kinda, and that might be more of a chance to keep some rigidity in it. Again, I'm not laying a bunch of glue in there. We're only going to be gluing around the perimeter, you know, the outside. So maybe I'm okay just sort of pushing down some of those areas, and if they don't flake off like some of these, I can't really catch my nail on it very well and it wants to stay. So maybe I'll just leave them. Once I get it to lay flat, just leave it. I'll demonstrate. I could try and cut that back, but that would open up that gap a lot further. So I've been going along, pressing it down, and yes, it cracks it more, but it makes it lay quite a bit smoother that way, and it sort of just relaxes the plastic. So I think I'm gonna try that. For better or for worse, I like the idea of pushing it down and cracking it more than cutting it and making a big old wide valley. So yeah, I think that's the route I'm gonna take. Pressing down and leaving it like that. All right, cool. That step is over. And I'm gonna give it some time to dry, because you can tell there are some areas where the pad was so dry that it just immediately soaked up my glass cleaner, and I didn't want to get super carried away with some of this stuff because I have no idea what it is. I know the previous owners were smokers, and I think that's paint, but I don't really know what was spilled on top of some of this. Under here you can see more of what the original color looked like, because it was out of the UV light The exterior color of our truck is cinnamon glow, I was told. So I would call that almost kind of an autumn brown with a little bit of bronze or gold to it. It's cool, but it's gonna look way better than this nasty black smudgy looking garbage. So I'm gonna go upstairs for a little bit, maybe let this sit for half an hour or something like that, and see if it flash dries just a little bit better than that so that our new stuff can stick. So this is the glue, RTV silicone rubber that came with it, and like the instructions say, we're gonna go all the way around the perimeter, and I'll probably go, you know, a little bit up in this area here, and we'll snap it into place. I decided that instead of clamping together, I'm actually just gonna leave it face down on a blanket on the floor, and then I'm gonna pile up some like paint cans or something like that for some weight on top, and I think that's gonna keep it just fine for a day or two. Let it dry and we'll go for it. So we'll pierce the top and get to gluing. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. It does smell a little bit, not too bad though. Like RTV silicone, we've used that stuff plenty of times at work. You know, the smell of the old dash pad reminds me a little bit of my school when I was in grade school as a kid. I don't know what it is, if it's the plastics that they used in the 70s or what, but it has a reminiscent smell to it for me for some reason when I was cleaning it. Alright, I can't push this all the way down inside there, so I'm just sort of letting it drape in there. Going up here. Oh, I hear the dog. We must have guests. Oh, one of the boys is home from work. Okay, let that fall down inside there. Around the perimeter. Come back up in here. I tried my finger in it just a little bit. It's alright. And just like that. Alright. Couple spots I didn't quite get good enough. Let me squeeze a little bit more in there. We're not going to use all the tube, but I want to at least get it all the way around. Looks pretty good. I think I'm going to sacrifice one finger just to do a little bit of a smear in there. It's about like, you know, caulking a sink. You gotta get it where it counts. If you don't get it where you want it, you'll regret it later. So. There we go. Cool. All right, spin the cap back on. Got a paper towel over here on the workbench, and we'll just run a finger along just to smooth it out a little bit. Make sure I get a good dab all the way along. And I definitely don't want to get it on the finished side at all. There we go. Follow it along up in here. Yep, I like that. A little bit close to the edge there. I really don't want it on my final product. All right, awesome. Time for the big moment. Snap it into place. Now, obviously, it's not a big deal if it gets on the old one. And we'll slide it up to the front like that. I like it. I like it. It's got a good fit to it. I can tell as I started to put weight on it that I really don't have enough glue right around this bottom edge because it's gonna hang down just a touch. So what I plan to do is just run this little tube of glue right down inside there like that. Squish some in there. Something kind of like that. There I like that better. All right, so there's the finished dash pad installed, and I'm really happy with it. I think it looks great up there, and for a third of the price of a brand new dash pad, I'm happy with that. So cover lay, great job, and I'm gonna definitely suggest anybody else looking for something like that to do the same thing. I think that turned out awesome. All right, because I have more welding and things like that to do on the interior, I'm gonna pull this thing back out, but there's a look at how it turned out. Pretty awesome. And since Curtis is starting life all over again in a new way, I thought we'd start all over at all zeros again. Yeah, I'm not gonna show you how I did that though. YouTube doesn't like such things. All I'm gonna say is magic. I need to come up with a way to attach my cluster up inside there in such a way as to hold it centered in the bezel. So I'm going to measure out my holes on the sides, and I think I'm going to make a couple of, mounting brackets that I can screw these tabs into the side with. Yeah, and that'll get me centered right where I need it to be. This kind of gives you an idea of where I think I want things to sit. I'm still kind of messing around with what angle do I want things to be at, and how deep behind the bezel do I want it to sit. And I'll point out that I'm seeing a couple spots where I need to have a little bit more glue along the edge of my dash pad, but easy fix there, not a big deal. It's got to come off again anyway, but yeah, so I need to come up with some brackets that I can mount my gauge cluster to back behind the bezel, but it's fun to stand back and look at it and say, okay, yeah, that doesn't look all that bad. I'm also going to need to get my headlight switch in here somewhere. So yeah, all right, just took a little bit of flat sheet metal and cut some strips out of that. And I'll just feed them into the brake here and hopefully add some strength to them a little bit. I don't know, let's try it. That's a lot more rigid and less flimsy than it was before. So now I can put this up inside the dash where I want it to be, and it should hold the cluster where I want it to be. Let's move on. There, that kind of gives you an idea of what I'm thinking a little bit. Obviously, they're still way too long, and I need to decide where I'm going to attach them up under here and down inside the dash as well. I'll probably get them approximate, lengths and the angles that I want, and then maybe screws up here that will be hidden by the dash pad, or tack weld to my dash supports inside. I'm not 100% sure yet, but that's kind of giving you an idea of where I think I want my supports to be. So I'm gonna get the cluster laid in there and just start eyeballing things and making marks so that I know what more trimming I need to do.